Welcome to the first audit committee of this term. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And we have the acknowledgement of traditional lands, which I will read for you today. We will rotate who reads that going forward. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions, land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us. And now at this time, I would just like to go around the room and let the members of the Audit Committee and our other participants and guests to introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Sana.
Hello, I'm Sana Malik, a public member of the committee.
Tanya Rocha, Vice Chair of the Board.
Azar Khan, public member of the committee.
Curtis Ennis, Director of the Board.
Amy Collard, Chair of the Committee and Trustee for Burlington Ward 5.
Roxana Ngoy, Superintendent of Business.
Donna Daniele, Trustee for Milton Wards 1 and 2.
Andrea Eldington, Regional Internal Audit Manager.
Lillian Chung, partner from Deloitte, your auditors.
Anthony Delavadova, Manager from Deloitte.
Carrie Salemi, Manager, School Financial Services.
Emery Jabat, Executive Assistant, Business Services.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to welcome to our meeting today our former member, external member, Dan McCarroll, who served on the Audit Committee for 6 years. The reason why he's here today is to receive his Inspire Award, which he was nominated for his dedication to the board and his 6 years spent as an external member. I just want to read a little bit of what the nominator had to say about him. It is an honor to nominate Dan McCarroll for an Inspire Award. Dan served as a volunteer on our board's audit committee for the last 6 years and was most recently vice chair of the committee, the first non-trustee to hold this position. While in a role where he had to assure accountability and controls at the board level, Dan's demeanor and approach was always professional, action-oriented, and supportive towards the efforts of staff in many departments. His expertise and advice led to many positive changes and process improvements over his tenure, particularly in areas where he gave advice on the implementation and follow-up on audit recommendations and what areas needed to be prioritized. His input touched many functional areas within the board, from special education to procurement, mental health to risk management to IT controls. Dan always looked for ways the board could do things better with the interest of serving all students in mind. As a community volunteer member on the audit committee, Dan never received any compensation or rewards for his role, but always attended meetings, prepared, and asked insightful questions. The value of his unpaid service was immeasurable, where many other consultants or advisors not in the role of a member of the audit committee would typically be generously compensated for similar advice. On behalf of all actively involved in the audit committee meetings, we will truly miss the skills Dan brought to the table and wish him well at the end of his term of service with the Halton District School Board. And I would just like to say, on behalf of the audit committee, thank you so much, Dan. You certainly earned this and more. Thank you again. Would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for that. And I have to say that screen looks quite big behind you there. I think I'm dominating that screen. You got to make that smaller. That's way too big. No, thank you so much, Amy, and thank you so much, Roxana and Carrie, for organizing this. I really appreciate the recognition. It truly was my pleasure to be part of the audit committee for those 6 years. I think I've mentioned this in the past, but I've learned just as much as I think as I provided to the school board. So it was truly a pleasure to work with such an outstanding group. Roxana, Carrie, and the finance team at the school board, really strong professionally, made the meetings easy. Everything went smoothly. Not a lot to talk about, which is always good news for an audit committee. Amy, your leadership and the fellow trustees around the table, commend you for taking the audit committee's work seriously and being committed to that over the term. It really speaks volumes of governance at the school board and how good a shape we're in. So again, thank you so much for this honor. I really appreciate it, and I wish the committee all the best going forward. Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much, Dan. We miss you.
Thank you. Okay. Bye, everyone.
We don't get to do that at every audit committee meeting, but let me tell you, that was special. Okay, so now at this point, I would like to ask if anyone has any declarations of possible conflict of interest regarding the items on today's agenda.
Madam Chair, so I would like to declare a conflict of interest. I have accepted an offer of employment with Deloitte, which will preclude me from participating in any further meetings, and I have submitted my resignation pursuant to that.
I am very sorry to hear that, Azer. We've truly looked forward to having you on our committee, and I know that you will find other amazing ways to make a contribution to our board. Congratulations on your new position.
Thank you.
Hi there. I would also like to declare conflict of interest with the recommendation of the external auditor recommendation.
Thank you very much, Sana. I believe you've all signed your conflict of interest declaration forms and submitted them back to Carrie Salemi. Thank you. And now I'm looking for approval of the agenda. Is there someone who would like to make that motion? Tanya, seconded by Sana. Is there any discussion regarding the agenda? Thank you. That motion is approved by unanimous consent. Thank you. Moving on to the ratification action items for today, we have the minutes of the Audit Committee meeting from November 8, 2022. Sana, would you please move for acceptance of those minutes? And seconded, I will second myself. Is there any discussion regarding those minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. We had no business approved in private session, so we can move on to the public session action items and open with the internal audit charter update. And presenting is Regional Internal Audit Manager, Andrea Eltherington.
Thank you very much, and through the chair. So this is a good opportunity to bring the mandate forward. We do it at least once a year. For the new committee members, it lays out the regional internal audit's responsibilities to the board and the board's commitment to provide us with the information that we need to complete our work. It also needs to be signed every time that there's a change in director, audit committee chair, or regional internal audit manager. And there was a couple of small changes to it based on a meeting held with the West of Central senior business officials. And for those of you, again, who might not be as aware of the regional internal audit team, the West of Central region includes the public and Catholic boards in Waterloo, Guelph, Hamilton, Halton, and Niagara. So we come together as a group a couple times a year, and this was one of the items that we discussed. So there's a couple changes made, and I'm happy to take any questions on that.
Are there any questions for the Regional Internal Auditor? Yes, the document has been signed today by the director and myself, so I believe it's all in order now. And thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item. Oh, there's the motion. Silly. Of course there's a motion. find it. What happened to my screen? Sorry, I'm having screen issues. Be it resolved that the Audit Committee approve the revised Regional Internal Audit Mandate, moved by Tanya, seconded by Donna. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That passes unanimously. My apologies. Moving on to action item 2.3.2, recommendation for the external auditor appointment for 2022-2023. And I would ask that the external auditors and those with a conflict of interest please leave the room.
So in accordance with the regulation, the Audit Committee has, among other duties, the responsibility to review at least once a year the duties and the fiscal performance of the external auditor and to make recommendations to the Board of Trustees for appointment, replacement, or dismissal of the external auditor. And in this report, we just wanted to draw the attention that the external audit firm has the services have undergone a request for proposal, and Deloitte has been awarded as the vendor of record for an additional 5-year term. So every 5 years, we are performing a competitive procurement process for the purchase of external audit services. It is within this report, it is recommended that the Audit Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees the appointment of Deloitte as the external audit firm for the annual financial statements for this current year and any agreed upon procedures such as the March reporting. And also as part of that responsibility is to approve the fees, and they are not to exceed $85,200 plus taxes. I will just mention that as we're looking at a couple of additional standard accounting standards being implemented, there may be some additional procedures that are required that are outside of the normal scope of an audit, and they will be a fee for that. That will be in addition to this, but that is anticipated and it's additional work and scope. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Let's get the motion on the table. Be it resolved that the Audit Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees the appointment of the external audit firm Deloitte LLP to perform the annual financial statements audit and the agreed upon procedures report for the 2022-2023 fiscal year at a cost not to exceed $85,200 plus HST. Moved by Donna, seconded by Tanya. Is there any discussion regarding this motion? And seeing none. Thank you. That passes with all parties present voting in favor. Could we please invite back in the external auditors and those who had a conflict of interest? Thank you. I'd like to turn your attention to item 3.0, communication to the Audit Committee. Our first item is 3.1.1, board report on budget development and schedule, and I'll turn that over to Superintendent Ngoy.
Thank you. And through the chair to the Audit Committee, this is a report that was presented at the Board of Trustees at the December 7th meeting. And it kicks off the budget planning process for next year, 2023-2024. As the audit committee has responsibility over the approval of financial statements, we have been providing updates to the budget process so that we can follow along. The financial statements uses comparable figures from the budget process. So this is providing you with some of the information in terms of some of the challenges, new initiatives, areas that need to be reallocated or reduced or whatever may be the case as we are embarking into the budget process. The timelines are attached to this report, as well as a bit of an update from a provincial perspective and board perspective. We are expecting the grants for student needs, which are the bulk of our revenue from the Ministry of Education, to be announced sometimes in March. All we know right now is that they won't be as early as they were last year. I think about mid-February we have received them last year, but that is not going to be the case this year. Usually they are released at the end of March. So we're hoping to have them as soon as possible based on the education funding guide that was released, I believe, in October, and it's also attached to the report. There's indications that the funding will be quite similar to this year, so we don't expect big changes, with the exception of the transportation formula being reviewed provincially and maybe implemented or phased in over a number of years. So that is one aspect. The ministry has also been looking at focusing on literacy and numeracy, and skill trades, as well as mental health. We do have, from a board perspective, one of the concerns is that over $20 million are funds that are timed investments for 1 year, and we are not aware whether or not, or we don't have direction currently if they are continuing in the future. So as you can imagine, that is over 200 positions that are facing students in the classroom, supporting learning recovery, mental health, special education, and other programming needs. So we are continuing to monitor the developments. We have started discussions internally in terms of where we are today, what we are projecting from an operating budget perspective for next year, where do we see increases due to inflation, contracts being renewed, license prices going, et cetera. So we're starting to build that part of the budget. On March 8th, we're going to provide a presentation to the Committee of the Whole, which is a public meeting. And the survey, the budget survey, is going to be released this Friday, closing on March 6th, and April 19th is when the report back with the input, the feedback from stakeholders will be presented to the Board of Trustees. We are going to continue to provide you with updates along the way. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Are there any questions for Superintendent Ngoy?
Thanks for that. Who is the survey issued to, and in what platform?
So the survey is for any stakeholders. We have a few categories just to identify what feedback is coming from our stakeholders, whether it's students, staff, parents, community member, or other. And we have social media. It's on our news feed on the website. So the news release from our communication does get picked up in the paper. We are speaking to the Parent Involvement Committee as well as the Student Senate. So the student trustees have been promoting it with the Student Senate, and then the student senators are promoting it with the students. So we've seen a nice uptick in terms of student voice. So we are trying to promote it, to all the various stakeholders.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much, Superintendent Ngoy. That was a very comprehensive report. And I believe you have the next one as well, 3.1.2, timelines for financial reporting.
And this is just for information purposes. As we are always doing work, different reporting cycles in different fiscal years, you have 2 fiscal years that are attached to the report. The current year, 2022-2023, has completed the budget process, the revised budget process, and there's a couple of quarterly reports that have been added. So the link to those reports, as soon as they're presented to the Board of Trustees, are being added here for information for the Audit Committee. The next quarterly report being on March 22nd. And the second fiscal year is next year, 2023-2024, when we are already starting the discussions for the next year's budget. So again, as we go through those timelines, a link to those reports or presentations will be added to your package. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions about the timelines? Thank you. That brings us to other business, and I will ask Manager Salemi if there are any public questions and answers for Audit Committee.
There have been no questions submitted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I will ask Superintendent Nagoy to bring forward some business.
Thank you. And for the chair, in light of Azer's resignation, we have received a written resignation that the chair and we would like to propose that the Audit Committee accepts the resignation formally and put forward a motion.
Be it resolved that the Audit Committee accept the resignation of Azer Hahn effective February the 14th, I should know that, 2023. Moved by, nobody wants to move it, you can't go. Tanya, seconded by Donna. Is there any dissent? Thank you very much. That motion passes by unanimous consent. Very sorry to see you go so quickly, Azer. We were very much looking forward to working with you, and I know that's not the last we'll see of you. As will I. Yes. Thank you very much. And that concludes our agenda. So,
I just had a question. I see Tuesday, May 3rd, but second? Okay. Yep, no problem.
we were going to make you come in twice, Tuesday and Wednesday. Okay. As we have exhausted our agenda, I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.